Hey, movie
Welcome to Movie
fans.
Cons.
Hey, today we're gonna talk. Today we're gonna talk about a haunting in Venice, a murder mystery whodunit that dips its toes into horror territory. Directed by Kenneth Branagh, who also plays the lead role as a Belgian detective. I didn't know he was Belgian. I thought his accent was more like French.
Yeah, they make that mistake in some of the other Agatha Christie movies. Whenever the Hercule Poirot is the character, he's one of the more famous detectives in Agatha Christie stories, and usually they make that mistake. I think that's in one of the movies. Might have been Murder of the Orient Express, the old '70s version, where somebody says that to him. They say, "I thought you were French," and he's like, "No, I'm Belgian." But yeah, same accent. You know,
It's the
they
same.
speak the
Oh,
same.
okay.
Yeah, they speak the
Yeah.
same language basically. But
Yeah.
this is the third in the trilogy of the Kenneth Branagh directed Agatha Christie movies, where he reprises the same role as Hercule Poirot. But the interesting thing about this one, see, the first two was Murder on the Orient Express. It's hard for me to say. So many R's in that which is probably Agatha Christie's most famous story. It's been made before. The '70s version is the one I prefer, with Albert Finney as Poirot. But that one was pretty good. Then the second one was Death on the Nile, which I'd also seen the old version and '70s version. Peter Ustinov played Poirot in that version. But I didn't remember that story, so I was actually excited to see the new Death on the Nile with Gal Gadot and Russell Brand, Armie Hammer. Because I
Yeah.
couldn't remember who the murderer was. So I enjoyed that one quite a bit. This one, A Haunting in Venice, I knew nothing about this story. And if you look at the background, the original Agatha Christie story was called A Halloween Party. And it was not in Venice. It was in, I think, like an English country manor or cottage or something. And so they changed the location, obviously, to keep up with the theme of the exotic locations, the Orient Express, then Death on the Nile, Egypt and the African wilderness, beautiful places. So they decided, we'll put this in Venice. And I thought that was a clever idea, Paul, because a ghost story and a palazzo on the water is kind of creepy. I thought that was an interesting idea to do that.
This is the first whodunit that was a bit of a horror.
Yeah.
That's what the horror part they did great. I have not seen a lot of whodunit murder mysteries that have something spiritual
Right.
or magical about it. So I was looking.
I was just gonna say, do you remember the Sherlock Holmes Guy Ritchie movie? Because it had some of that in it. It was kind of like a similar theme where it was all occult and magic, and of course Sherlock Holmes uncovers what's really going on. That was 10, 15 years ago when that came out, so it's been a while. But that's the only other one I can think of that had a similar kind of horror type feel to it. That's what it reminded me of when I saw the preview. But this is obviously based on an Agatha Christie story, so it already had that element, I guess, because it's based around Halloween. So
Right.
but I didn't know it. I was completely unfamiliar with it, like you. I didn't know the story.
Yeah. The premise is that Michelle Yeoh is a spiritual medium, and Kenneth Branagh thinks she's a fake, exploiting people for fame and money. Then there's Tina Fey, who's a writer and Michelle Yeoh's rival of some sort. If Kenneth Branagh is successful in exposing Michelle Yeoh, Tina Fey would be able to write a best-selling book exposing the world's most celebrated spiritual medium. Then someone gets murdered. And the rest of the movie, like any whodunit, is the Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot figuring out who did it. So let's talk about the things we like and don't like about each actor's performance and the story. So let's start with Kenneth Branagh. What do you like and don't like about his performance?
Well, he's pretty much the same as the other movies. I think he does a decent job. I'm not an expert on the Belgian accent, so I couldn't say if he's way off on that, but he's believable. He's obviously, even in his performance, you can see that he's a little perplexed by some of the things that are happening, because he doesn't believe in ghosts. He doesn't believe in this spiritual stuff. He has a more, I guess, logical mind, like a Sherlock Holmes. And so he but there are moments when he seems to have doubt in his eyes. I think Branagh did a pretty good job with that of, trying to decipher what's happening, trying to figure out what's going on. So I enjoyed his performance. I know we're going to get into this, but my favorite thing about his performance was the juxtaposition between him and Tina Fey. And the actual thing is, I think Tina Fey was, like you said, the nemesis of Michelle Yeoh, and she was trying to debunk her. She was trying to prove that she was a fake, and I think she's the one that invited Hercule Poirot,
Right?
Because she wanted the most brilliant mind to basically do that, to uncover that she was a fake. So it was really Tina Fey's mission to uncover this medium, and she hired, I guess, or invited Poirot to come along. So he didn't really even know, I don't think, about the Michelle Yeoh character until he got there. But overall, I thought his performance was good. I don't think it was anything super special. It was basically the same as the first two movies, just in a different setting, in a sort of a haunting and ghost setting, and him trying to uncover what's really happening. And I think there were moments in the movie where he genuinely did seem frightened. Yeah. So that was an interesting difference, I think, in his performance from the other two films.
Yeah, and he also directed this movie. So I mean, Kenneth Branagh is something that could do anything. He's consistently good. I don't remember him playing a role that's uninteresting. Like he always knows the assignment and always, and
he's a very good director. He's shown his range as a director. He directed the first Thor movie for Marvel. He directed Cinderella for Disney, which is, in my opinion, still the best live action Disney, adaptation of one of their cartoons. And he's, of course, famous for all of his Shakespeare in the past, Hamlet and Henry V, and he can do a little bit of everything, and he's proven he can do comedy and he can do drama, and now his new thing that he's like I said, this is his third one, is he's getting into the murder mystery genre, and it's exciting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is the third one. Is this the last of the trilogy, or is there gonna be?
It's a good question. I don't know. I kind of hope they keep making them, because there's plenty more. I mean, Agatha Christie wrote so many books. He could probably keep it going. I don't know how many of those Poirot was the main character in, because she had other, Ms. Marple was one that she had. There were other, sleuths or whatever you call them, that solve mysteries in her books. But I'm assuming there's a lot more if they wanted to make more. But maybe he's done. I haven't read anything to say he's done.
Okay, how about Michelle Yeoh? I thought her performance was great. I think this is the first time. I think this is her first big movie since she won Best Actress on Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I mean, every time she's on screen, she's the center of attention in this movie. I thought she was the best actor in the cast, and it would go to toe with Kenneth Branagh. I wanted more of her. We'll talk about it on spoilers, because I thought, wait, if you're gonna hire an Academy Award winning actress, she can't be in a movie for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're pretty much saying what I was thinking. I enjoyed her. She was good, like you said, and I've never seen her in a role like this. This is different from anything I'm used to with her. She's definitely been more into the action genre, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once was kind of a outlier from just about anything in her career. But this is also different. This is a character that I wouldn't have expected her to play necessarily, but she does great, and I just wish there was more. But yeah.
Well, it is what it is, and we'll talk about it in spoilers. What it is. Yeah, but there was a scene where when she was possessed by the dead girl. I love how her voice shifts between her regular voice and the dead girl's voice. It was flawless, and you'd really think, oh, there's no way she's faking it. Now we're not gonna tell you if she was faking it or not, because that's gonna be in spoilers. But on the onset, I was like, okay, hang on. Now I think she's legit. She's a legit medium, because that's the question: is she legit or not?
Right.
And when she did the shifting voice between her regular voice and the dead girl's voice, like, oh, okay, now this must be legit. What do you think about that scene?
Well, she proved that she's a showman. She proved that she could get an audience in the palm of her hand, because that's kind of what her whole thing was, right? But yeah, she was believable. You could see that, like I said, in Kenneth Branagh's performance, you could see that he had a little bit of doubt in his eyes. He wasn't totally sure what he was seeing, and if it was, of course, he figures things out as pretty quickly. But yeah, I agree with you. I thought Michelle was good. I don't know. I'm sure there's other actresses that could have done as well, but she's proven through her career that she's more than just a kung fu artist, right?
Oh yeah,
she can do a lot more.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, she's. It's amazing that she's in her 60s and she's probably at the height of her career in her 60s.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I was thinking when I first saw the cast for this movie, because I've just had it in my mind that Orient Express had this all-star cast, and Death on the Nile was kind of another all-star cast. And this one was not as much so. That's what I thought. I was like, who are all these people? I mean, I knew Michelle Yeoh, Tina Fey, Kenneth Branagh, but then I was thinking there's not any huge stars in this. But as I thought about it again, I was like, well, Michelle Yeoh is a pretty huge star globally, probably bigger than Gal Gadot even, who's big now, but she's kind of new on the scene.
Yeah.
And I think about, Russell Brand, pretty famous, Armie Hammer, pretty famous. But then like French and Saunders are in Death on the Nile, and outside of Britain, people probably don't know who they are. But in this movie, I just thought, okay, it's Tina Fey and Michelle Yeoh, and that's it. Like, who else is famous? But then I recognized Jamie Dornan's pretty famous, I guess, from being in the 50 Shades, and then the lady that's in Yellowstone. I have never watched Yellowstone.
Right.
I know I'm one of the 5 people in America that's never watched Yellowstone, but I know she's pretty famous.
I haven't seen Yellowstone. Yeah, Kelly Riley.
Yeah, Kelly Riley,
and she's been
there's
in
a couple others.
Yeah, Kelly Riley's been in a lot of horror movies, so maybe that's why they picked her.
Yeah,
and she's good at playing these dark but vulnerable character.
She was definitely recognizable the whole time. I'm like, I know this face.
Yeah, she's one of the actors.
Then I realized later, okay, yeah, she's in Yellowstone, which I haven't watched, but she's in other things too.
Yeah, I mean, they wrote her character well. Kelly Riley, she's I think the third major character in this movie. She definitely has more screen time than Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did good. She did good. I mean, I've seen her in some horror movies, and she's the same in here. If you've seen her in horror movies, you'd expect the same from her. And what do you think about the story? How does this compare to other whodunits like Knives Out, Glass Onion? Because it feels like it's in the same. Well, it's if you think about whodunits, it's Knives Out and this trilogy that you could compare back to back.
Yeah, this is a new thing that's become popular. Well, first of all, it's Agatha Christie, who's the most famous mystery writer who ever lived. So there's people that know her work are already going to be familiar with these stories and probably already know, oh, I know who the killer is immediately. That's one thing, but most of the public probably doesn't know any of that stuff. I think that from a standpoint of writing good mysteries, Agatha Christie is one of the best. And the Knives Out is just Rian Johnson trying to recreate his own thing. I think Knives Out, the first one, was good. I still don't think it was like a typical murder mystery, though. It was still a little bit, it was a murder mystery. Glass Onion was a bait and switch. I think we talked about this before. It's not a murder mystery. It presents itself as that, but it's not. When you break it down and you look at it, and it's been done by others online. Ben Shapiro most famously ripped it apart. Critical Drinker ripped it apart. And I know there's some differences of opinion, but I agree with those guys. I thought Knives Out, the first one was good, but Glass Onion, I was not a fan of that one at all for a lot of reasons. So if I'm comparing this trilogy to those two films, I would pick this trilogy, not just because it's Kenneth Branagh, but because the source material is just stronger. It's better.
Yeah.
And even though this one was a little bit predictable. Like I kind of figured it out pretty early. Like I just had an idea. Like, okay, I think I know who it is.
And you
but it
haven't
still
read the
was
book.
good. Yeah, and I hadn't read the book. I didn't know it, but I kind of figured it out. But that's only because if you're familiar with the genre and you've watched these kind of things before, certain things
It's
make
always
sense.
the person you least expect.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's somebody that like, well, it couldn't be them, and it turns out to be them.
Yeah.
But it was still clever. It's still, and I have to say, if you're asking things that I like and things that I don't like, if I'm going to say something that I don't like, and this might be my fault, but the movie was quiet, it was dark, and it was slow, and so I was
Yeah.
falling asleep.
Yeah,
I was struggling to stay awake. Now, I took Callison, my daughter, with me. I didn't take my wife because she does not do horror at all. If it's a little bit scary, she doesn't want anything to do with it. So I knew she wouldn't want to see this. So I took Callison because she likes that kind of stuff. And she was awake the whole time. And I would hear her snicker and I would realize, oh, I missed the line. So I know I have to rewatch this movie because I know there's some good dialogue. And so my only complaint is, and this sounds crazy, is it needed more jump scares because that would have kept me awake. And I'm not really a big fan of jump scares. I think they're cheap. But, if they're done well, you can do a jump scare well, Alfred Hitchcock style, or even M. Night. M. Night, Sixth Sense is a perfect example of how to do a jump scare. But it was a little too slow and quiet for most of the movie. And I was shaking my head trying to stay awake.
yeah.
So that might be the one thing that I would say is a thing I don't like. But once again, it's probably my fault. I should have had some coffee before I went to the theater. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it's an intellectual movie. Maybe I can say that it's a smart movie. We have to listen into the dialogue that it delves into, like deeper themes about life, and because Kenneth Branagh
And the
here is like,
characters.
he's like a retired detective and he doesn't want to do it anymore, and he's trying to find his purpose. So there's themes like that, and of course
He's
the
ready
mother.
to relax.
Yeah, the mother and daughter dynamic, the dead daughter and the mother, Tina Fey, greed and fame and money. It's some of it's pretty deep. Besides the whodunit stuff, how about what do you think of the format of the movie? Do you think it's been a little bit formatted as of this point? Because it always in murder mysteries, it's always that at the second act, it's always that, oh, you think you did it, and then blah, 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 blah. Of course they didn't do it because it's the first time. It was the first one, and then they go to the next one and then the next one, and it kind of gets predictable. Of okay, the last one should be it.
Yeah, there have to be red herrings and fake outs to get the audience invested in the story, and to guess. And it's like a magician. It's a lot of sleight of hand and misdirection to make you think, oh, it's this person. I know there was a scene in, I don't know if we want to put this in spoilers, probably maybe not. But one of the characters says to Hercule Poirot, "We're not that different. You and me are not that different," which is a villain line. That's a cliched villain line that's gone back for decades and decades. You always have a villain going, "We're not so different, you and me," to the point where if I hear it in a movie, I'm disappointed. But the character said it down, and I remember, and I was like, "Oh no, that means they're going to be the killer." That's immediately what I thought. It turns out that person was not the killer, so you don't have to put any of that in. That's not a spoiler, actually. So if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know, but. It's a red herring. It's like little things like that make you go, I wonder. But my initial reaction, the person that I thought it was in the beginning, not to sound like a smarty pants, but I ended up being right. I'm not always right. Sometimes I'm completely off, but this time I guessed it. But yeah, it can be formulaic, but that's the thing about a murder mystery. And
It
that's why I
has to
say
be.
like Glass Onion's not a murder mystery, because Glass Onion tried to twist it too much to the point where, okay, now it's something else. You've taken us off into another territory, and that's a bait and switch to me. It's like I wanted to see a murder mystery, and you didn't give me that.
This is more classic.
This is a classic murder mystery.
Yeah.
Yes, And so it, like we've talked about before with the Bond film, with James Bond movies, you have a formula. You have certain entrees you expect to have with your meal.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it, then you're disappointed. So I could complain that it's a formula, but at the same time, this is the formula that I pay to see. Like I kind of want the formula.
Right.
I want to, and it takes a clever writer to give you misdirection and to give you doubts about, because that's what the audience is doing from the beginning. We're all trying to guess who's the murderer, who's doing it. And if it's cleverly written, we talked about in one of our reviews about See How They Run, that I love. It's on HBO a lot now, so I've seen it a few times. But that's another murder mystery based on an Agatha Christie play, and it's one of those that you can guess. It's that this person is this person, and the funny thing about that film is that Saoirse Ronan's character thinks it's everybody. Everybody is, it's got to be this person because they said, and because she's not clever enough to realize that it's a little bit more complicated, And there's the scene in that movie where she's talking to Sam Rockwell, and he's like, "No, it can't be that person," and he breaks it down for her because logically that wouldn't make sense, and she has to rethink it. And then in the end, it's not the person you think it is. So it's cleverly written to the point where you didn't know, based on any of the things you're seeing, who the villain was, even though they were right there in front of you the whole time. So it can be cleverly written, even though it's a formula.
Yeah. If you're into whodunits, then this is one of the classic ones. You'd expect it. It's everything you'd expect in a murder mystery whodunit. How would you rate this from 1 to 10?
Oh, I'll give it a 7. I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't say I liked it better than the first two in the trilogy, but it was different. I liked like you said, I liked that it was a ghost story. It had kind of that horror element to it, so that was different. My favorite thing about it was the relationship between Kenneth Branagh and Tina Fey. It's their relationship, their bantering back and forth made the movie.
Yeah,
it worked.
I agree.
It propelled the movie in the same way we talked about the Guy Ritchie movie, Operation Fortune. Remember, we talked about Jason Statham and Aubrey Plaza. Same thing.
Yeah,
it's that wisecracking American, with that kind of solid, calm, debonair British, although he's playing Belgian, but he's British in real life. So it's like that combination. One's kind of serious and one's kind of wisecracking and funny, and I love that. That was my favorite thing, was their relationship throughout the film. And it was good because it helps the story that he has someone to bounce ideas off of, right? And exposition, and it's like that keeps the story going. Because if you think about it, if you remove her character and he's by himself, is he talking to himself in the mirror? I mean, who's he talking to about what he's thinking? So it's good that he has her to bounce these things off of, and her to cast doubt and to, try to prejudice him one way or the other. So I love that. And that's what I look forward to with rewatching it, because I know, like I said, because it was a sleepy movie for me, I might have missed some very clever dialogue between the two of them.
Yeah, I forgot how good Tina Fey is. I think this is her favorite. I think this is her first big movie since Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. I don't think that was even a big movie, but she was. That was that was a major role, and I thought that was a good movie.
I never saw that one. I did see her in Muppets Most Wanted. Is that not a huge?
I haven't even heard of it, because she's probably her date night with Steve Carell.
Oh, I love Date Night.
Yeah,
great.
Date Night. Hilarious. They were good. Great chemistry. And we mostly see her in movies, 30 Rock, in SNL, and she's mostly a TV actress. But when we see her in movies, she doesn't disappoint.
But also a writer and a director. I mean, she did Baby Mama, and I'm trying to think of the other movies she's done. But some of those are a little old now.
Yeah, I'd probably give it an 8, just because I didn't fall asleep. I was in it the whole time, because the dialogue was great, and it's not only a murder mystery. It has it's very character driven in a way. Like Every character has their own motivations. They have their own reasons of why they do. And at the
Right.
end, Kenneth Branagh kind of wrapped out the whole theme of the movie in one statement, and it just hit me. You know, I still remember that line until today, and we'll talk about it in spoilers. And that that was a great line to end this movie.
Good. You'll have to remind me because now I don't remember it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the spoilers section, guys.